saw like the Slava Ukrainian stuff, like the cheering for the war. Like they want to like keep showing support for their people's great struggle against evil Russia. And I don't know, man. Like honestly, I'm not even sure how I can approach them. Like I can go out there in public with the sign that says, "Yeah, let's stop war." And I mean, Ukraine can't win anyways, and I'll probably find myself picking my teeth from the ground.
Prove to me that you are alive.
What up, everybody? Welcome to Prove to Me that You're Alive, the most shadow banned podcast and channel in the whole entire world. This is for the truth seekers. Today I have a very super special guest. He's a good friend. He's family. He's an exceptional human being. He's a fighter. He wrote two incredible books. I always leave links in the description. One of them was Canada Lost, Symptoms of a Dying Nation. Go get that, man. The other one was 90 Seconds to Midnight, Why Ukraine Can't Win, but how we can find an exit. He is an activist. He's someone that we respect, one of these human beings that just can't simply go on with his life when he's seeing injustices. So without further ado, a friend, a brother, a family to the channel, Orwell McLee, man. I'm gonna give you a round of applause. How are you, brother?
I'm doing all right.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. I told you before we started recording, but it means the world to me that you wrote back. I really enjoyed our last conversation. We had a little, technical difficulties and stuff, but you were talking about some interesting stuff. So what have you been up to? We haven't talked for a while, almost a year, I think. What have you been up to?
Oh, I've been just busy supporting my family's business. My family owns we're like a small real estate developer, and maybe like a couple rental units out in the Western Canada. So I've been helping my family with running their business because I gotta support myself and them as well, and also doing my own thing with the stocks. And well, I've been trying to attract more audience to my work for the past year, and it's been a struggle. I'm gonna say that for sure. It's because it seems like everybody just wants this war to keep on going for as long as it takes. Unfortunately.
Listen, yeah, it's awesome that you're, working with your family and you're helping them out and stuff. Today, you're not shielding the voice. Why is that? Are things getting a little bit better in Canada?
No, not at all. I actually got a different computer. I used to use a Windows laptop, but I gave it to my old man. He needed a new computer anyway, so I got a new build. It's Linux, and I don't think the voice app works on this computer. It's for Windows only, I think. So I
Yeah.
decided to be like, yeah, whatever. It's like I'm not really comfortable showing my face, but I don't really think I want to hide my voice anywhere. It's just it doesn't. I think it's all right. Yeah.
That's cool. You got a pleasant voice, man. So
Yeah.
so
Thanks.
that's cool. Listen, so a lot has happened since we last spoke. And this is what I wanted to ask you because you kind of touched on it in the email. So I don't know if it's like that in Canada, but in the States here in America, it seems like since President Trump took office, it seems like, it's like this revolution of sorts is happening. Something is going on. What is the sense like in Canada after this administration took office?
There's I say there's a mix of fear and optimism. It's a weird mix of both, to be honest. And I guess it really depends on where you're at, whether you're in Eastern Canada. Like I'm speaking most like when I'm saying Eastern Canada, I'm mentioning the provinces in the Maritimes, like that by the Atlantic Ocean, and Ontario and Quebec specifically. they obviously are hell bent on keeping Trump and any kind of like MAGA ideology out of Canada. But in Western Canada, where I am, in the major cities, I can see that people might have a mixed opinion. Like they want to keep Canada as is for now, and they don't want anything to do with the MAGA influence. But on the other hand, there's actually uh, there's a lot of effort going on behind the curtain to seek some sort of like maybe like something that's similar to European Union, but some are actually openly advocating for the annexation with the United States. And there's a lot of people who are angry about Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government. Well, Trudeau he's no longer the prime minister. We have a new guy now, but yeah, a lot of people are just fed up with the Liberal government in the East.
Okay, so just so we understand, maybe a lot of people don't understand. If you know, obviously Canada is a huge country, but your population is very low. If someone like me, let's say I don't know anything about Canada, would you say that it's mostly liberal, or let's say like Quebec is conservative, and then Vancouver is liberal? Like how would you describe Canada, and is it changing now since?
Well, Canada as a whole is pretty liberal, even in the areas that consider them to be conservative. Like for example, like province of Alberta, which is probably the easiest way to understand Alberta is like Canada's Texas, but their gun laws are even more restrictive than California or New York. So that's one example. Let me tell you that. And even the people who are like pro for the annexation, they still have this like hope that like we might be able to keep like some of the things that we appreciate, like universal healthcare and the welfare system that we have. But I really don't think Americans, like your administration, will be that kind to us. It's gonna be like the one case example that I've been thinking about is there was at the big wildfire in Hawaii a couple of
Yeah,
years ago,
Maui.
and
Maui,
yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, Maui, yeah, we had a lot of and there was like a lot of like the real estate developers, the sketchy types. They start contacting the locals who lost their home because of the fire. They're trying to buy those lands cheap. So I
Mhm.
think something like that is quite likely to happen.
That's scary. Listen,
Yeah.
what do you say to people that say that Canada is a socialist country?
Uh, it's actually more than socialism. I say it's actually downright fascist. If you don't mind me, I mean, yeah. If you don't mind me speaking my mind freely, yeah.
Please, man, please,
It
let's
it, it,
let's
it
go. That's what we're
unfortunately
doing
is.
here, man.
And it's been so well hidden for past few decades, so that most people think Canada is well, I don't even like saying this, but technically it's supposed to be a free country, but it really isn't. I mean, we have a leader that's not even an elected member of parliament. That's like so that and the system in Canada is quite different from United States. So the political party who holds the most seat in parliament, like House of Commons, that's like Canada's equivalent to House of Congress, Congress in the United States. So and the leader of the party, who's also the member of parliament, becomes the prime minister.
Okay.
And this guy Mark Carney, he's actually not even a member of parliament. But I guess there's some legal loophole that allows someone who's like a friend of prime minister to be the next prime minister.
Okay, but then on the other side, you guys are still tied to the monarchy in Great Britain, right? Or is that simply symbolic?
Well, on the surface, it seems to be symbolic, but deep down, there still is a lot of there's still a very under the table dealing kind of thing going on between the our government and the monarchs. It's I mean, what I know is like probably the tip of the iceberg,
Hmm.
but technically, all the government lands is owned by the crown. Crown, and we're talking about British crown.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what do you say? What do you say to the people that that would say that Great Britain lost its once huge power, and now United States is actually running Great Britain, and then United States is also running Canada? What would you say to people that say that?
Well, I don't have the evidence to back this up, but this is just my hunch, to be honest with you. But it seems like the Americans don't really trust British anymore, and they don't even want to maintain this sort of like a alliance or a partnership that we had for the last well, ever since World War II, because they just find them to be untrustworthy. The whatever they're doing is not exactly in America's best interest. So um I don't think they want to like completely cut off ties with Britain, but at the same time, they want to be the uh, the toughest guy in the neighborhood. I mean, the ones that are like leading the way. Like that they don't want to make like any kind of concession with the United Kingdom. Like they're not gonna ask for like consent if they want to do things. They just sort of Americans. I mean, the Trump administration. It seems like they just want to do things their own way, and they expect others to follow along. That's how I see it.
So wait, so now Justin Trudeau is not the minister anymore? When did this happen?
Just happened. Well, like, couple. Well, he said he's gonna resign a few weeks ago, at least a month or two ago. I mean, I don't really follow the timeline that well, but
Mhm.
and this guy Mark Carney, he's a WEF member, and he used to be the head of the Bank of England for
Okay.
a few years, and from what I heard, he wasn't that good of a head of the Bank of England. What he did was basically printed a lot of money and it caused inflation in UK. That's part of the reason why UK is struggling so much these days. And he's also environmentalist, so he, in a way that he wants to he wants to preserve the environment by decreasing our economic activities. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a good idea, but
That's a good idea.
I mean, like, we need industries and like we need to like make use of our resource to support sustain our economy. But if you don't do that, then how exactly are we going to sustain ourselves? That's the question that I have. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Listen, so okay, I want to ask like you personally, and then I want to, well, you kind of touched on this a little bit because obviously you're not like, any other citizen. Like you're very well informed, you're very well read. So when you initially heard this whole thing come out of Trump's mouth that Canada should just become the 51st state, what were your initial thoughts and feelings in regards to this?
to be honest, I'm quite worried about what might happen in the future if we indeed go with this 51st state thing. Because I mean, I mentioned you about the example about the those predatory real estate developers in Maui. We might see a lot of Americans coming up here to take advantage of Canada. That I could definitely see that happening. I mean, I don't really think it's gonna be a nice, like, gentle way of annexation. It's gonna be a force feed to us, I think.
Hmm.
And partly that's one of the main is because there's actually a quite stiff resistance towards the 51st state, especially in the east. People who are supportive of the government and people who are like, who might be upset about the government and not necessarily willing to give up the privileges that they have, like the universal health care. And I don't I feel like uh, there really isn't, like, from the Trump and Trump's point of view. He only has like what 3 years and a few months left, so he's gonna be very aggressive. And I don't really think there's going to be a time to like discuss all the like the all the like the um transfers of like the legals and the medical system and yada yada. Like, you just want to probably want to get things done as soon as possible. It's going to be like a the shock therapy
Hmm.
economics, something that happened in the Latin America in the set like the 80s, when they just went bankrupt. They got a bailout from IMF, and part of like the part of the condition was like eliminating the all the subsidies and welfare system, and that caused a lot of havoc in the Latin American countries, and that's part of the reason why they're so upset about the neoliberalism and like the IMF and that kind of like the what was it called, like world order, that they're not that very happy with it. So we might see that this a similar thing happening in Canada in the near future. Who knows?
You mentioned something interesting in the email, and if you don't want to answer this, we can skip. But you said something like when you read that when you wrote that long email. I must say you're you're an incredible writer, man. You have skills with the pen. But you mentioned something like a possibility of a civil war in Canada. Like, why did you say that?
Well, it's because the two western provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan, they're like our Texas. I said, like they're the two most conservative provinces in Canada, and they have a huge reserve of oil, natural well, like oil and gas. So there, if America wants to secure the if like the secure I mean, if the American wants to get their energies from Canada, like the way they do right now, that's the two provinces that they probably want the most, I think. And but the problem is that people in Eastern Canada, especially like our political establishment, they don't want any of the provinces to go. So there's going to be a very huge resistance coming from Ottawa. Like you can't just pull the plug on us. We're not going to let you go. And Alberta, Saskatchewan, the except for the liberals living in the major cities, people had enough, I think. So they want to pull the plug on Canada. So, and I don't think they're gonna like let us let those two provinces go without a fight.
Mhm. Listen, we all know that like Trump says outlandish things, right? A lot of time he does it for attention. He's an entertainer. That's part of the reason why people like him or hate him. But let's say that he was serious. From your understanding, why would America want to do that? Does that mean that America is in trouble financially and they need some of your resources?
Mm, I think that's one of the main reasons. I mean, Canada is one of the most resource rich country in the world, like on par with the Russia,
Russia,
I
yeah.
say. And but also I think they all it's kind of like the war in Iraq. That's what I'm thinking about. Like the just going into Afghanistan and bombing the hell out of Taliban was not enough. They had to show their Americans had to show their the dominance or force by going after Saddam Hussein. I think that's kind of the same play that's going on right now.
Mhm. Yeah, man. Canada, it truly is like probably Canada and Russia. I mean, most definitely. A lot of people when they argue, like as far as resources go, I just tell people, imagine the landmass that both Russia and Canada has. Also, you guys have a whole like northern polar part. Who knows what's up there, from diamonds to possibly oil, like anything could be up there. This is what I wanted to ask you. So what's going on with your book, 90 seconds to midnight? Since we last spoke, have you tried to because you did mention you've been running around trying to get people's attention. Are you seeing any sort of reaction? Has anyone given you any feedback? Like, what's going on as far as the book uh since we last spoke?
Well, it's at a standstill, and most. I mean, you probably know better than I because you have a like wider more presence in YouTube. But a lot of people just want to sell their products, so they're not exactly willing to promote. Like, they're not interested in promoting other people's product. And like I said, people they don't say it, but there's always this subtle message that we want this war to going on for as long as possible, so I can cash on it. That seems to be the mutual understanding here, sadly.
Yeah. So, but have you had anyone give you any sort of feedback on the book?
Well, I mean, like, best I got is like, yeah, well, thank you all. I'll check it out, and if I like it, I'll give you my feedback. But generally, I don't hear back from them.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that even after Trump won, right, and we kind of people that have been shut down the last few years, we kind of started thinking, well, okay, now we're gonna get a break, we're gonna be able to finally speak. But what I'm noticing, actually, we're being shadow banned like even harder, you know, now. And I think the reason for that is, this is my personal opinion, is that when they hear like conservative Americans talking about it, it's one thing. But then when you hear someone that's either from there or someone that has a close connection like you to the Ukrainian people, that's when it's like they get uncomfortable. That's the sense that I'm getting, man. What do you think about that?
Well, for one, I first found about your channel because it popped up on my recommendation. Like, especially that's what that's like right after when Gonzalo Lira got when the heck was that, like, the he was under like a house arrest
Yeah.
or whatever. He was still alive back then, and you're very concerned about his safety. So that's how I found your channel and started communicating with you. But yeah, the shadow ban it seems to be the real thing. Like, the stuff that you're saying, you should have like at least like hundreds of thousands of views by now, but you don't really get many views, despite you're being very like honest about what the situation over there. So, and if you type like war in Ukraine or Russia Ukraine war on YouTube, all you get is the videos that first pop up are like the ones from mainstream media, right?
Yeah.
The ones that are controlling the whole narrative about the war. So
Hmm.
and they've been just full of crap for the past 3 years, and now they're being slightly more honest about, like, the war is not exactly going favorably for the Ukrainians. But I mean, you and I know that almost like right from, like, well, I won't say not right from the beginning, but early on, right, that this war is not what the mainstream media is telling us. Like, it's not, it's nowhere near the same as what they're telling us. But that message is just not getting out there.
That's why I always wanted to commend you, because it's one thing for me, like I was, born and raised out there. So I have this, like, connection. It's unbreakable. But as far as for you, it's so brave that, now it's much easier to speak about these things. But when it all
Hmm.
started, it wasn't simple, and yet you went against the current, and you showed that bravery because you really wanted, for well, I'll say it straight up, you wanted to save some lives, man. That's why I urge everyone, please, I leave links to the book in the description. It's a very powerful book. Go get it, because this book was written to save some lives. So this is what I wanted to ask you, Orwell. So
Yeah, go ahead.
what's going on the ground in Canada as far as this whole Ukraine thing goes? Now, since Trump won, some things are surfacing now that, well, this could possibly really be a proxy war. Like, you and I know, what's going on, but I
Hmm.
mean, to most people now, like, these narratives are coming out that perhaps this is a proxy, this and that. Like, what's the vibe like in Canada as far as the war in Ukraine?
It's it's very interesting because on the one hand, people are just sick of it. Like, if you look at the comments about, let's say let's go CBC, or one of our like the major the mainstream propaganda news channel, government funded, of course. Like, I mean, well, actually, you can't even comment there. The comment sections are all, like, they turn it off. They don't even let you comment. But there's a couple other news channels that are out there. They allow you comment. If you look at like comments on the video section about the wars in Ukraine, people don't want anything to do with it. But on the other hand, there's always these people who are just beating the war drum, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, we want this thing to keep going on. Yeah, go Ukraine, go. And there's also and as usual, the Ukrainian diaspora here in Canada is still cheering for this war, despite all the lives lost and the homes and, like, the properties and the buildings have been damaged for the past 3 years. But they still keep beating more drum, almost more louder than ever. If you don't, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, and
Have
I
you?
think, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it seems like there's in their mind they're believing that they want to do the good thing, and they think it's right to support Ukrainian that way, but is that really making a positive contribution in stopping the bloodshed? I don't know.
Have you talked to any of your Ukrainian friends, the people that you were close with? Because it's one thing when you see a group of people and they're running around with blue and yellow flags, but it's a whole different thing when you can communicate with someone personally. Have you talked to any of your Ukrainian friends about this personally?
Uh, you know what? I should, and I check out their Facebook once in a while just to see how they're doing, and it's all like the Slava Ukrainian stuff, like the cheering for the war. Like they want to like keep showing support for their people's great struggle against evil Russia. And I don't know, man. Like honestly, I'm not even sure how I can approach them. Like I mean, if I mean I can go out there in public with the sign that says, "Yeah, let's stop war." And I mean, Ukraine can't win anyways, and I'll probably find myself picking up my teeth from the ground because people are still hell bent on keeping this war going for as long as it takes. Like I said.
So what is your, and please be brutally honest, man.
Okay.
What is your opinion on the people that are still running around on the protest? And I know you guys had some in Canada, and they're running around with the flags, and they are themselves in the West. They're not there. Most likely their families also not there. Or these are people from Western Ukraine, which thank God, the war hasn't touched them that much. What is your honest opinion? Like, what would you say to these people from everything that you know and everything that you learned?
Um. Well.
Be honest, man. You can curse them out
Okay.
if you want.
Well, I mean, oh shit, this is really hard. But
Like if you could speak
yeah.
completely honestly and you would come up to that protest and they would actually let you speak, what would you tell them, like from your
Well,
heart? You know.
I hate to tell you people, but you guys are delaying the inevitable, and what you're doing in hopes of helping Ukraine or supporting your people's cause is actually doing more harm than good. I mean, you stood behind the leader that did more damage to Canada and possibly to Ukraine um, than any any hostile foreign countries did. Like, I mean, you guys always worry about like Russia, uh, like the harming Canada's interest, but who's done more damage to Canada? It's the well, the people who ran this government, who are heading this government for the past 9 years, and the people who stood behind it. And I'm afraid that the what those people who stood behind this government are you guys. So how do you expect us to support your cause when you're doing more harm to well, Canada's, let's just say if you're Ukrainian Canadian, then both countries are your countries, right? So how do you expect outsiders like me and like other Canadians who doesn't have the Ukrainian heritage to support your cause when you guys are being, I mean, inflicting way more baggage than Russia ever has to this country. I mean, well, for the two countries, I say.
Definitely, man. Listen, I know me and you touched on this, you and me touched on this a little bit last time, but I wanted to hear as far as what is the aftermath. So basically, we talked about, and this is incredibly like mind blowing to me, is that last time when Zelensky was, with Justin Trudeau, and I forget what the event was, and they had the old man that was part of the UPA, that was a Nazi
Uh,
collaborator.
no, he's actually not UPA. He's a SS Galician.
Oh,
Waffen
okay.
SS. Yeah,
SS
Waffen SS.
Halitzina. That's
Yeah,
even
listen.
worse.
Yeah, Halitzina. Yeah.
That's even worse, man. So
Yep. Yep.
what I wanted to know is, some time has passed after that. Has there been any like throwback, his like what's the aftermath of that event happening in Canada?
Well, the guy who invited him to the parliament, I mean, he's from North Bay, Ontario. The old dude. Well, I'll just say his name, because it makes it easier. Yaroslav Hunka. Hunta or Hunka. Yeah, he's actually from North Bay, Ontario, and the Speaker of the House. What was his name? Yeah, well, yeah, I won't look at his name.
It's okay,
later.
we get
Yeah.
it, man. Yeah, we get who.
And so the House of Speaker, he's also from there, so he invited his his neighbor,
Wow.
who happens to be the member of member of the SS Galician, who for those who don't know, that's the Waffen SS unit that were found later in the war, when they were running low on men. They thought, well, maybe we should recruit people who are a little more European than the Slavs. So they found a lot of willing like people who are willing to like volunteer for a unit in Western Ukraine. Like, so that enough, and the number of the volunteers happened to be large enough to form a division. So he was a member of that unit, and somehow he found a loophole in our immigration system and came to Canada after the war, and he's now supposed to be the World War II veteran who fought against the Russians. So that's and there's actually I talk about this in my book. There actually has been a very rigorous effort under the table, I mean, on the surface, that's been going on for many years to have the surviving members of these UPA or SS Galician as a Canadian World War II veterans. And that's the effort that's been going on by Ukrainian Canadian Congress. And what's his name? Pavlo Grod. He used to be the former president of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. He's a big advocate for that.
Yeah, just so well, I just wanted to add on to it that I would really like for people to understand that when SS Halichina joined the Nazi ranks, they really wanted to prove themselves, a lot of these men. So a lot of the like more horrific war crimes that we know about from World War II were actually committed by SS Halichina. There are even stories. I spoke to people that survived Babin Yar, and they said that a lot of the horrendous killings and tortures and stuff were actually done by SS Halichina. But I wanted to ask you, like, so what was the reaction, and what has been the reaction in Canada? Did people just kind of hush this situation, or is anyone actually talking about it? Did Canadian people themselves realize, like, hold on, holy shit, we had a Nazi man like being saluted?
Well, there was a lot of outrage in the immediately after the standing ovation, but like most things in Canada, it went silent pretty quick. So now I don't even think anybody remembers. I don't think even that many people remembers that the whole insanity, or that the guy's name even is mostly forgotten now. We got other things to worry. We got other things to worry about.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Before we go on, could you please, for the people that don't know, and you will know this the best, how big and important is this Ukrainian culture in Canada?
They have a large presence in major cities. Toronto, not so much in Vancouver, which is Canada's Seattle. We're just like it's only a couple hours north of Seattle.
Yeah.
But in major cities in the Prairie provinces, like Edmonton, Alberta, Winnipeg, Manitoba, there's a huge presence of diaspora there.
So it's big, meaning like what I'm trying to say is like, let's say 4 years ago in America, 4 or 5 years ago, if you were to say you're from Ukraine, people don't really know. They'll know like Lomachenko or like Usyk or whatever, but they won't know what the heck Ukraine is. But in Canada, it's different, right? Like people are aware of what Ukrainians are, right?
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
I
And
mean,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, there's like a in well, actually, it's actually in most universities in the major cities. They do have universities with Ukrainian Studies Institute.
Oh wow,
Yeah, in well, almost every major city, like pretty much, I say. Like
wow.
there's one in Edmonton, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Toronto. I don't know about Vancouver, but I think there's one in Ottawa too.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like for America, that's mind blowing. And just so people also understand, right? And maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me. Most of the people, the Ukrainian diaspora that is in Canada is actually the people that escaped World War II that possibly had connections with the UPA or SS Halichina. Like this is where they escaped to and had the freedom to kind of build this Ukrainization that we now see become prevalent even in Ukraine. Am
Yeah,
I
that's
am I right about that?
yes, you're exactly correct. And like there's actually several monuments that were set up to glorify the Ukrainian Nazi collaborators in there's one in Edmonton. They're not just in like one area in Canada. There's one in Edmonton, Alberta. There's like one in Oakville, Ontario. That's like Oakville is like a suburb north of Toronto. People were outraged when they found that there's like this Nazi war monument standing up in the city cemetery. There was actually that's actually quite a few years ago, and as usual, the Ukrainian Canadian Congress said, "Oh, this is well, it's a monument to remember the our World War II generation, and if you speak anything negative about it, that's Russian propaganda." So they picked up that tried and true Russian propaganda shield as usual.
That's crazy. They either say Putin puppet or Russian Russian
Yeah,
propaganda.
yeah.
So what do you okay, this is what I wanted to ask you. From everything you know, everything you studied, obviously this is close to your heart because you wrote books about this. You want this to get out to people. And by the way, just so you know and the watchers know, I'm currently working with a lawyer. We're trying to figure this whole shadow ban thing out because YouTube themselves actually admitted that they're actually shadow banning. They did it on accident, but whatever. So we're gonna make sure that your work gets noticed, man, because I think it's so important. What do you think is going on right now with this situation? And I'll kind of set it up for you, right? So Europe is screaming we have to keep fighting Putin. Trump came in, he said that he wants peace, but then the Secretary of Defense, Mark Haskett, I think his name is, on February 12th, he said that we have to double down on providing weapons and spy intel and stuff. So like from everything that you're seeing, everything like what do you think is going on? Where are we as far as the war in Ukraine, and where are we headed to?
Well, like I said earlier, it seems to me that they're trying to delay the inevitable for as long as possible. I mean, anyone with the common sense can know that Russia definitely holds the higher ground in the battlefield right now, and things are not well. I'm putting it a little mildly, but things are not exactly going well for the Ukrainian army. Uh, so, but they don't want to admit it because they don't want anybody. It seems like nobody from the West is willing to bear the responsibility for panning the flame, for the lack of a better word. And also it's a good business opportunity, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but definitely is. If whether you're in media, you're like, you have a like the weapons manufacturing business. I mean, it's been it's been a one hell of an opportunity, right? So why don't we, and I see that then from their perspective, it's like, oh, there's, I guess, if there's even more business opportunity now because Europe wants to arm themselves to fight against to make a stand against the evil Russian bear. So hey, why the hell not? Let's sell more weapons and keep this thing going for as long as it takes. That's kind of the idea that seems to be just it seems more alive than ever, despite there's peace talks going on.
Mhm. So, but do you think that as far as the Trump's administration goes, do you think it's a front? Do you think that um, he's kind of playing the population, or do you think that they really have intentions on ending this, but they don't know how to go around Europe?
Well, I guess if he just let put, I mean, if he openly says like Putin, just do whatever you want, man, then this is obviously, it's like exactly showing his strength, right? Is actually being weak, and he doesn't want to be seen as weak. So I think he's gonna try to he's gonna try to appease peace, but still try to appear as to be the dominant player in this war. But ultimately, I think I just don't see how this can. There's just like a 30-day ceasefire going on, right? But you think that's going to be enough to like discourage Russians from keep doing what they're doing on the battlefield? I don't think so.
I really wanted to stress this, if you let me. I really want to stress this to people, and I really wish that people will understand, and I always speak on behalf of the people, the narod, right? That's all I care about. I don't care about the flag. I don't care about the national anthem. I care about the people on the ground. People are suffering. I want everyone in the West, English speaking people, to understand when they speak about, oh, Russia battling Ukraine. Russia has not even started to war yet. I really want everyone to understand that when you have a war and you go into the regime of war, right, it's completely different. The whole country's economy all of a sudden focuses on the war. You start recruiting people left and right. Ukraine is snatching people up off the streets, but Russia has not even started the war yet, right? They don't have mandatory conscriptions. Like, they only have volunteers going to battle. They even had like 20,000 people from Korea, whatever. So Russia hasn't even started to war yet. What do you think about that?
You see, I said in my book that there's like a lot of deception and propaganda coming from both sides. So to be honest with you, I don't have like uh, this strong faith in everything that's coming from the Russian side either. So, and I mean, the simple fact is this war's been going on for 3 years, and for the 3 years, Russia's been dying, whether they like it or not. I mean, so it's hard for me to believe that like everything has been going so well for them. I don't I'm not fully convinced that that's to be the case, because there's still a lot of people. I mean, it's a full scale war that we haven't seen in since what, like Korea War, right? So if something like this happens, a lot of people dies on both sides, and I don't know, man. It's just
Yeah.
but
So I wanted to ask you this, man. Well, and I can add to why I say that they haven't even started to war. And I love the fact that you said that you shouldn't believe either propaganda. The reason why a lot of times I say things, with like a high certainty, is because I'm in touch with people over there. I'm in touch with people on the ground. I'm in touch with people that have things to do with military on both sides. To me, I still have even family, all over there. So, and the reason I say that is because if we look at any military doctrine for the last 100 years, we know, the way that superpowers, the way they go to war is like, let's say America in Iraq, right? They will come for first 3 days and they'll just bombard from the sky. They'll clear out the area and then they roll in on tanks, which doesn't seem as what Russia's doing. Russia's actually, they're kind of tippy toeing around, you know, they want to, that's what it looks like. And I've been speaking to, like, you know, military experts and stuff, and that's what they say it looks like, that they're kind of tippy toeing because they want to save as many casualties as possible. But something that you said is a fact, Orwell, that whether you like it or not, Russia is dying through this, right? What I wanted to ask you is, a few weeks ago, it's the Oval Office, Zelensky is in there. What is your reaction to what happened in that Oval Office?
Well, I say that Zelensky, it had a long time coming. It was about time to see what kind of person Vladimir Zelensky is. Like, I mean, there's been, you know, a lot of talks coming from it. Well, it's mostly from like the pro-Russian channels that they, how, you know, how big of an asshole Zelensky is and how corrupt he is, and obviously the usual defense coming from the from Western side is, oh, it's all Russian propaganda. He's like a modern day Ukrainian, Jewish Ukrainian George Washington. He's a freedom fighter, but the way he behaved in Oval Office is
Prove to me that you're alive.
it really shows his character, right? He's brazen, he's stubborn, he's shameless, and it's all about me, and what I want, not your feelings or whatnot. I'm only here to get what I want, and that's it. And if you don't like it, then well, I'm gonna threaten you, even though I don't have the cards like how Trump did.
So you don't think it was a setup, right? You don't think it was some kind of play? You think it really happened the way it happened?
Well, I mean, there might be some, you know, the under the table or behind the door kind of dealing, but at the same time, it was like the more transparent thing that we have seen for the past 3 years, right? I mean, the mainstream media back when Biden was around, it was all about glorifying Zelensky, even when the war wasn't going so well for the Ukrainians. He was still getting you know, standing ovations, still getting, you know, people like worshiping him wherever he goes. But we finally get to see what kind of person, at least part of what kind of person he is, right? So that's a huge change, I say, in terms of how the way things are going.
What was Canada's reaction? Because in America, like, you know, America split in half. Right away, it was a lot of people screaming, "Oh, poor Zelensky, the dirty Trump! How could you do that to him?" The other half, like, kind of like their mind was blown. They started to research more. What was, you know, from your surroundings and from what you know, what was Canada's reaction to the whole situation?
I think it's same up here too. Like I said, there's people who are just the diehards who are still supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. They're quite sympathetic towards Zelensky. I mean, he's just in their point of view, it was like he was this innocent kid that's being bullied by all these schoolyard bullies, try to take his lunch money or whatever. And at the same time, we have people on the other side. They finally get to see Zelensky for who he is, and yeah, and they're disgusted. Well, for like a better word, that we've been sending so much money from this country for money and military equipments and supplies for the past 3 years to support one of the most corrupted country in the world, headed by who knows, who could be probably the most rotten, corrupted guy in the world today.
Yeah, man, especially when all the dirt is gonna start coming out. So you're you know, you're very well taught in history. You know, so I wanted to ask you this because I'm kind of like seeing a lot of similarities. So let's say the last century, in the 30s, early 30s, America went through the Great Depression. The whole world was going through a hard time. During the harvest season, it was dry. So then we seen, Hitler's German, Hitler is taking rise in Germany. He's getting stronger. And then United States kind of, starts supplying Hitler with weapons. Let's just be clear. And then, when the war happens, World War II, all of a sudden we see obviously the production in the United States go up. We're producing weapons and ammunition and stuff. And then all of a sudden America, we come out of World War II as, the world's biggest superpower, and also the world's reserve currency. Do you think right now that Europe, Canada, America, that they are in deep financial trouble and this is why they need this to go on?
Uh, Partly, yes. I think the American military industrial congressional complex, I mean, like I say, they want, I'm sure they're one of the most willing people who are just doubling down on this war, and they want this war to going on for as long as it takes because it's a good business for them, right? And maybe they're seeing a war as a way to get out of this financial mess that we've been in for the past 2 decades. I'm not sure, but I see that there's definitely some parallels to going on, like in terms of how things were back in 30s and 30s. Well, now we're not 40s yet, but we're kind of getting there, right? This is like what's happening in Ukraine is like kind of like the prelude to what happened, like the world wars that we've seen in last century. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that we're quite like it's quite likely we're heading down the same path, unfortunately.
Yeah, so because the big talks, that Europe is obviously, since the Nord Stream pipeline happened and everything, and Germany, is struggling, and they are the European, powerhouse. And that might be their move to break Russia up. Some time has passed since we last talked. Some time has passed since you wrote the book. Looking back now and everything you've learned, what do you say now? What do you say was the reason for this whole thing initially?
Reason for the war, or I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
yeah.
reason for the war. Well, I said in my book that the from the Russian point of view, this war is uh, well, this is their terminology, but they want to liberate the Russian speaking, or the ethnic Russian population in eastern Ukraine, right? Because we have a government in Ukraine that, well, since government in Ukraine since Euromaidan has been uh, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very uh, anti. Well, no, I'm just gonna put it easy. Very anti-Russian. I mean, they don't really want people to speak Russian. They don't really want people to appreciate or make use of a Russian culture. Or I mean, they want that presence replaced by the Ukrainian, what they think to be the authentic Ukrainian presence or Ukrainian culture or heritage. But I mean, you know better. You probably know better than I did. But Russian is the language of business. Russian language is the language of business in former Soviet region. That's just something that we cannot dispute. It's a fact. And if I remember correctly, uh, mo- uh, only one president ever since the independence has been his first tongue was Ukrainian. The rest of them has been all Russian. So I mean, from outsider's point of view, how do you convince me that you guys are authentic Ukrainians? I mean, you guys been sort of switching back and forth, and it seems like the people who are in Canada, or the diehard nationalists from Western Ukraine are not willing to openly admit that fact that just cannot be disputed, right?
Yeah, man. So what do you say to people on one side that are saying, well, Russia just wants to make have the Putin wants the Soviet Union back, so he's gonna conquer the whole Europe. On the other side, they're saying that NATO expansion. I mean, we pushed Russia into this. So what do you say to those both people, man?
Well, I actually, well, there's still like, well, well, I seems to be the one that's like standing in the middle of these two arguing parties, and they both have both sides have legitimate concern. Uh, Believe it or not, like like I mean, I can totally understand that. Well, me not being a Westerner, uh, originally, the concerns from Baltics and countries like Poland, they really don't have a good experience with Russian imperialism or Russian expansion. So, and after the fall of Soviet Union, I can totally understand that they want nothing to do with Russia. They just want to be part of West, part of the EU, or well, NATO even, because at the moment they were first given an opportunity, they joined they joined EU and NATO without hesitation, right? Because they wanted that protection from the from ever experience the same same intervention from Russia again. But on the other side, I can totally see that Russians are quite concerned about the Western influence coming to them. Like the I mean, I guess it's easier for me to see because me being a non-Westerner that you don't want this wokeism ruining the lives of young people. And I can, well, it's one major cause for the war on the Russian side that they're willing to fight for it, and some are willing to die for it. And there's definitely there's people, a lot of people in the West, in many ways they underestimate just how determined Russians are in terms of protecting this protecting their like the heritage or culture, I say. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I really wanted, I've been thinking this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always felt that the people in Donbass are completely abandoned by both sides because they're sort of stuck in the middle of this slugfest, and they're the ones ones that suffer the most, right? Ever since this war started, I mean, they're well, it's pretty much safe to say that they're abandoned by the Ukrainian government, and the bombs and the shells they've been dropping in eastern Ukraine coming from Russian side, they're just killing people indiscriminately. So I mean, I can understand why that argument, that this war being a war of liberation of like the ethnic Russians, Russian speaking people in eastern Ukraine, but at the same time, it's no exaggeration to say that Russians are killing Russians.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because the people, you're right, the people in Donbass, they've been suffering for the past 10 years. And I would encourage everyone to go watch an interview I have with now he's like a famous Russian Ukrainian blogger. He's from Donbass. He was there when the whole thing started. He was there until 2022. And the funny thing is that, like, according to the Soviet Union, his mom is Ukrainian, his dad is Russian. He speaks both languages absolutely perfect, right? So he always asks Ukrainian people, like, so what am I? Like, are you just gonna like the half of me? Since a half of me is Ukrainian. So I would encourage everyone to go watch that interview. I translated it because it's a very touching interview, and I'm so glad that you touched on this. So I got a couple more questions, Orwell, and this is my last question about Ukraine. If it was up to you right now, how would you end this?
That's way beyond my ability or my pay grade to say
But
how we can.
if you
But
could, like,
well,
snap of the fingers, you could. But we have to be realistic with what's going on now. But how would you end it?
well, well, in my book, I say that I don't know the way. I don't know. I don't have any like a crystal ball or silver bullet to end this war once and for all. But I'm suggesting the first step that we can take in terms of ending this war, which is it's in my last chapter of the book, but the one word that can summarize what I'm saying in that whole chapter is acceptance. You need to accept things that are just not indisputable and unavoidable, but that's not exactly happening what from the side that we're on right now, like we're living in right now, Western side, I mean, right? Some
Yeah.
things that they've been trying to deny or hide it for the past 3 years. Well, it's becoming more apparent that it's just not inevitable. And but so open admission, I guess that's another terminology that can explain what I'm trying to say here. That's something that we can be that can be the that can be where we started, like. And so in terms of how to end this war, like completely, yeah, unfortunately, that's something that's beyond my ability, man.
So let me clarify that question. There are people, again, and I have to put an emphasis on this, people that are mostly from Western Ukraine. They haven't been back in Ukraine for a while. They are in the West, either Europe, Canada, or America. They are the ones that are screaming the loudest. Let's go back. We need the 1991 map. You know, Crimea back, Donbass back, and we won't stop until that's achieved. So I'm trying to clarify the question, and if you could speak to some of these people, like, how, if Russia was to say, that's it, let's stop today, we're keeping the territory that we liberate or conquered, or what have you, and that's it, and we stop, like, would you take that deal, and would you tell Ukrainian people to take that deal?
uh I'm not gonna say yes or no, but what I can say is that, well, someone, I heard this some saying a long time ago, is bad peace is better than good war or just war. So I want people to think about that sentence and think what's best for Ukraine and the people who are affected by the war over there.
Yeah, because I really want to, again, I'm going to emphasize that the people that are in Ukraine and the people that are on the front lines or live along the front lines, they had enough. They're suffering. And I'm so glad also that you talked about the Donbass region. Just so people know, Horlivka or Horlovka gets it's right there on the front line. Gets bombarded every day. But people, even on the Ukrainian side, people are sick and tired. They are, and again, I'm in communication, with people. They would take the deal tomorrow. If you tell them, look, it's over, whatever Russia keeps, whatever Russia keeps, they would take the deal. So, and I think, again, the only people that are, pushing for this thing to go on are the people that haven't been in Ukraine for a long time. If I have another little question before I ask you my last question. Um, what would you like? What would you do with Western Ukraine? So I'm gonna kind of clarify the question. So Eastern Ukraine, as far as Donbass, and I spoke to people from Donbass, they say they don't trust Western Ukraine anymore, because every time that Russia, is under war, the enemy always comes through Western Ukraine. That's where this whole nationalistic thing comes from. Bandera, Shukhevich, like, so if like, what, if you could, what would you do with Western Ukraine? Would you say Poland take Western Ukraine, or keep Western Ukraine and let it be independent, or let Western Ukraine join the European Union? From everything that what would you do with Western Ukraine?
Well, this is the title of one of my videos on my channel, right? You won't enter Ukraine with, excuse me, you won't enter Europe with Bandera. That's the saying coming from the former Polish president, and also, uh, well, lot of Poles are still very resentful about what happened in World War II, like all the ethnic cleansings that are committed by the Ukrainian nationalists and their followers in what used to be Eastern Poland, now is Western Ukraine. So that unless you sort that out historical baggage with your closest neighbor, that could be the first step in maybe Ukrainian possibly becoming a European state in the future. But unless that first step has been taken, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for Polish people and for the people who are people who are aware of the atrocities that were committed back in World War II. So, and one thing that that in, and they're just saying that the leaders are the sort of like they're a representative of the nation of the people nation that they're leading. And what Zelensky resembles is that this just outright refusal to show any regrets or admit the facts that admit like the guilt, right? And that's sort of the impression that Ukrainians have left to not just to me but to a lot of people who's been following this war for the past few years. I guess some are like me; they've been following Ukraine very closely since Euromaidan, and that's sort of the impression that we got. And I want, and it's high time for people of Western Ukraine or people who come from people who are descendants of people who came from Western Ukraine, like the ones the vast majority of them being the diasporas here in Canada, and I'm assuming in the United States as well. It's time for you guys to think about whether some are uh, downright preserving it and some are cherishing it. Is this going to help your people's cause in any way in 2025? That's something that the people from Ukraine, excuse me, Western Ukraine, to think about before there will be more suffering and more damage that's going to be inflicted because of this war.
I think that this was probably one of your strongest points in the book, and I'm gonna paraphrase. But you said that we cannot build a nation based on the heroes that we have. You know, we cannot build it on such a hatred. Maybe you can clarify, like, but I remember that was a really strong point from the book.
Well, the impression that I got from watching that whole the Zelensky versus Trump fiasco in the Oval Office is almost same as the impression that I get when I think about Stefan Bandera and his legacies, if you can call that. Is this outright refusal to admit guilt, show any regrets for the all the atrocities that were committed because his actions and his ideas. And you see that from Zelensky. Then nothing shows more vividly than the day at his day at the Oval Office. And if that meant Stepan Bandera is to be your national hero, he's the Batko of Ukraine, then how do you, like I said in my previous interview, how do you expect us outsiders to be supportive of your heritage or your cause? It's basically just outright denial of truth that are indisputable and just doing anything that's as a means to an end, and that has crossed a lot of boundaries for the past 3 years, and well, for many years, eh? So it's a tough sell, and a lot of people are just not going to buy it.
Yeah, just so people can understand, if you ever go to Germany, Germans are so deeply apologetic about World War II. Like, I seen even things in like Munich when Germans will like rush to open the door for like Jewish people, and they're very apologetic. If you were to have a street named after some Nazi soldier or whatever in Germany, the whole country would go crazy. But yet, just like Orwell just said, in Ukraine it's an acceptable thing. There are main streets that are named after Nazi collaborators. So I just want people to kind of understand on what level this is. So I wanted to ask you this: you are I would call you a patriot of Canada, and I always make a difference between a nationalist and a patriot. To me, a nationalist is fighting for a flag, an anthem, even territory. But a patriot, that's someone that's always behind the people. Someone that loves their country, loves the country for the people, wants to save as many people as possible. You wrote a wonderful book, um, Canada Lost: Symptoms of a Dying Nation. And again, everything will be in the description. Orwell, what's going on with Canada right now? What's going on with the drug epidemic? What's going on with this whole wokeism? What's going on with like what are you seeing, almost a year later after we last spoke? What are you seeing? What is Canada becoming or not becoming? What are some of your biggest issues, and where are you guys headed, man?
Well, I can tell you that we're going from bad to worse. I don't see that drug epidemic getting any better. It's getting worse. I mean, we have literally invited criminal organizations from all over the world to bring their operation in and set up shops here, and also launder their money through real estate and casinos. Like the casinos in the province of British Columbia, they're like the uh, uh, criminal organizations' favorite destination for getting their money laundered because they don't really ask many questions, and real estate as well. Since and part of the reason why real estate in British Columbia, particularly the Vancouver and the surrounding region, has been so expensive is because there's been a lot of dirty money flowing in there,
Hmm.
and that's something that people kind of knew about it, but um, they're not spoken like openly by our mainstream media because they're sort of well, Mr. Trudeau is actually a good friend with the members of triads for part of this big drug and money laundering operation here in Canada, and there's been and there was actually a journalist. His name's a Canadian journalist. His name's Sam Cooper, I believe. He did his expose about how Canada being the uh, center of money laundering and drug production and distribution in the world.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going bad to worse, man. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not well since they're so dependent on government. They're just not willing to bite the hands that they feed them, right?
Yeah, because we're not allowed to say this word on YouTube, but I'm
Mm,
gonna I'm gonna say it because from the behavior of Europe and Canada, it's almost like it's suicidal, man.
it is. It definitely is. I mean, I don't even expect like where they get this idea of uh, countering or about defeating Russian bear, like when they're just like doing more harm to themselves. We're like literally like self harming. Or a person with like mental issues or traumas. They're just like cutting themselves with the razor blades every day when they feel bad about it, and we're like consuming like all these like bad substances. We're like abusing substance, and we somehow expect to defeat the one of the most powerful nation in the world that's been literally waging a war against like the whole Western world for the past 3 years. Come on, man! Like, and I've been around Slavs, and they're like wolves, man. They are the toughest people in the world. One of the toughest. But and you want to go after them when you're all like all drunk in wokeism? Come on, man. You guys need to wake up and smell the coffee.
Yeah, well, it looks like the bills that both Europe, Canada, are kind of passing through and signing. Like again, it seems like this like sick suicidal way of existing, man. It almost doesn't make sense. What's going on the streets? Because I know, like, we're shown, let's say if they show America, they will show like Skid Row or Philly as far as like the drug epidemic. For Canada, they always show us Vancouver. What is it like in main cities? What have you noticed? Do you actually notice this like homelessness and drug abuse? Is it visually noticeable, or is it like
Uh,
somewhere far away?
no, like in parts of Canada, like well, I mean, like, well, in major cities, like especially Vancouver, like downtown Vancouver, like we call it this there's street named East Hastings. That's like Canada's Skid Row, and yeah, you can see people like doing all sorts of drugs over there. There's like the homeless people and the addicts who are just wandering the street. Yeah, yeah, that's nothing new to me, really. I mean, not new to like most people who are living there. It is almost, it is sad to say that it has become just a normal thing.
But has it become worse though? Is it getting
Worse,
worse?
yeah, I say it's getting worse, and obviously there's a huge increase in grand theft autos and like gang violence
Wow.
in major cities.
Gang
Like,
violence in Canada?
well, in mostly they're mostly in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. uh it's usually, well, funny thing is that they have this like huge like, grand theft auto ring that's stealing all these like luxury cars and shipping off to like places in Africa or Middle East.
Wow.
And, well, they all have. There was this one. I remember this one news report that I watched. Well, video that I watched, and they all have the same last name, Singh. So they're Sikhs. So
Mhm.
we have we have a Sikh gangs that are operating in Canada, just
Wow.
doing whatever the hell they want. And I don't think they're the only ethnic gangs around there that's doing the same kind of things.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Did you guys see a large influx of Ukrainian refugees when this started happening?
Yeah, we had at least like we have hundreds and thousands of the newcomers from Ukraine. Yeah, that's for sure. And thanks to the handiwork of Deputy Minister Christian Freeland, excuse me. Yeah, they've been getting like, when they come here, they get like new iPhones, and I remember in I think it's in Saskatchewan, they get to go to university. Uh, they don't have to pay, like when you come here to Canada to study, you have to pay like international student tuition, which is a lot higher than for the domestic, compared to domestic students. I think
Mhm.
they're only paying about the same as domestic students do, and some are even going to school for free if I remember correctly.
So how are the locals feeling about this, man?
Well, locals feel they're getting the short end of the stick, for lack of a better word. I mean, they're the ones that are paying the taxes to fund these generous uh, support program for the Ukrainian refugees, but the benefits are not going towards them. It's going towards the people who just came to Canada and haven't really made much contribution yet. And to me, it just seems like this is the one way to secure votes in the next federal election. I mean, they're just gonna. I mean, obviously, they're gonna be beating the war drums to please the Ukrainian diaspora who are hell bent on um, defeating the Russian bear. They're obviously gonna, give their votes to them. So it just seems like a business to me, really.
Um, Listen, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I do apologize that we started late today. That I was
That's so
busy.
good.
Um, literally got a couple more questions. I don't have much time today, but I appreciate you so much. And again, your family, you're a friend. You're always welcome back. Anytime you have anything to speak about, I want to ask you a couple more questions before we out of here. What would you like to see? What kind of change would you like to see in Canada? Someone that's so deeply involved with what's going on, someone that dedicated books about the subject. What would you like to see some realistic changes in Canada? Because again, like, maybe a lot of people don't understand, like, the wokeism, it's been like a plague around the world. In Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, there are even such things as bestiality legal, and then it's legal for like a kid to want to have sex change without parents consent, and like there's all these crazy things going on. So maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, and also the main point, like, what kind of change would you like to see happen in Canada?
Mm, well, two things that I want the most is normalcy and common sense, because that's something that's just not here in Canada anymore. And it really breaks my heart to say this, but and I don't want to hurt Canada by means. I mean, I want Canada to be a great and prosperous country, but and I don't think this is just me feeling this, but a lot of people are so fed up. They might not necessarily willing to, like, getting get organized and start raising hell and then destroy this country into peace. And but a lot of people are just not willing to stand up and save Canada. So, and maybe the separation of the Western provinces, or just the outright annexation by the United States, that might be inevitable at this point, unless they sober up and come to their senses. But unfortunately, I just don't see that happening at the moment. So maybe the only way to get at least some level, some level of normalcy and restoration of common sense is Canada just breaking up into so, two or three different countries, or getting annexed by the United States. I just, if we stay in the same course, yeah, that might be the inevitable conclusion.
So you think that's realistic?
It is very realistic, I say, and like there really is like no national unity anymore.
I was
And
gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you if there is
okay,
such a thing as a unity in
because
Canada, as far as like being proud to be Canadian and things.
well, a lot of people think they are, but the one but you remember, I think you probably know it too, but when there was a lot of criticism towards Elon Musk coming from Canada, he said Canada is not a real country. And I honestly, I can't disagree with him. I mean, the flag that the Canadian maple leaf flag, the maple leaf is actually is a symbol of that flag is actually a knockoff version of the flag of a Quebec national, the nationalist organization in Quebec. So
Really?
it's a Quebec flag. It's not Canadian flag. A lot of people don't know about this. And "O Canada," our national anthem, that's also a Quebec nationalist song originally. They
Oh
just changed the
wow.
lyrics to make it more Canadian. So we have two most like the iconic Canadian things that not being Canadian. So yeah, I mean, me knowing that, I can't really disagree with Musk, man.
Yeah, because like for people that don't know, Quebec is like its own thing, right? I mean, they speak French. They have a capital in Montreal. Like so they're like a country within a country, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like
that's
one example, like if you buy anything from Canada, like a pack of gum or a can of juice, it'll 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 have two labels, one in English and one in French.
mm.
That's how they're serious about preserving their language and heritage.
Mm. That's interesting, man.
Mm.
So listen, before we are out of here again, I appreciate you so much. I want to tell you from human to human, I appreciate you as a human being. I highly respect people like you, people that stand up, people that are vocal. And again, like if we think we're being pressured in America as far as free speech and stuff, listen, in Canada, it's a whole different ball game. um my wife and I even we talked about you before, and we talked about like as far as you changing your voice last time, right? And
Yeah.
my wife looks at me, and she's so smart, man. Shout out to Romania Post. She looks at me and she goes, listen, man, she's like, of course he's gonna be worried about his safety. Think about all the lunatics running around in Canada screaming Ukraine and stuff. So I just wanted to show you my respect. I wanted to tell you thank you, because I'm from Ukraine. Again, you're someone that could have just been living your life and not caring, but yet you are a true Canadian patriot. You are a true patriot of this world. Someone that's like, maybe it's not the best thing to do for me, but I feel like this is the right thing in my heart, so I'm gonna do it. And I also always respect, what I respect about you is that you never take a definite side, right? You kind of look at the world without the pink shades. You say, look, there's Russian propaganda, and I may not agree with that and this and that. You're always upfront and you're honest, and I appreciate that about you so much. I cannot thank you enough. Before we out of here, can you tell us again right now, anything you want us to know as far as about the books and the mission that you are on? What do you want to accomplish, and how can we help?
Well, personally, the whole experience of writing the book, I mean, I did this pretty much as a hobby. I mean, I wasn't really, to be honest, I wasn't really interested in like making money off of it, or becoming like the world famous author that I I mean, I'm not even showing my face, of course. Like becoming famous or popular is not really my top priority. I mean, intellectually, I really enjoyed it. Like you know, because to be honest with you, I really enjoyed being around Ukrainians and studying their history and politics. Not so much of culture, because I'm not too like the not well not too terrible. I wasn't like too terribly interested in culture, but the history and politics. Oh yeah, like I studied as if it was my own, and
Mhm.
I love every minute of it. And I'm still not willing to disclose my ethnicity, because
That's
my
cool.
cover will be my cover will be blown really quickly and really
Nah, that's
easily.
cool, man. That's
But
cool.
let's just say that I'm only 2 generations away from the same bloodshed or carnage that's going on in Ukraine today, and it's very personal to me. I never wanted anyone, especially Ukrainians, to go through what my grandparents' generation have gone through. And me being only 2 generations away from the same kind of brothers killing brothers, that whole insanity. Yeah, I don't want people of Ukraine and Russia to go through this, but and I I'm not really sure how big of an audience that I can attract, but yeah, like I had to do something, man. I just couldn't just sit idle and watch as these terrible things are unfolding right before my eyes.
It takes a special kind of human being, and when you highlighted, this is very important. A lot of times in the West, we forget that this is a brother killing a brother. It's the same thing that happened in Yugoslavia in the 90s. Slavs, we get targeted, man. And for anyone that thinks that Russia doesn't have a reason to be afraid, just think about the war. Napoleon came for Russia, and then World War II, Great Britain, and then World War II, Germany. Like, they have a reason to be paranoid. But like, bouncing back from what you just said, I think the really sad thing for me was like the first 5 minutes of euphoria with Zelensky in the Oval Office was like, yes, finally, this dog gets put down. But then when the euphoria wore off, I had this really sad feeling that, like, once again, the West is like, look, we can come over there, we can do whatever we want, and then we can take your president, put him down in front of the world, and say, hey, it wasn't even us, it was the last administration. Once again, it's like, and the guy is not even Slavic. He's a Jewish guy, but it was like a signal to the Slavic world, like, yo, we can do whatever we want with you guys. We can come over there, we can start a war, and then we can say, yo, it wasn't us. Like, it was the other guy. So to me that was sad. And I think again, I commend you so much, man, that you didn't walk past, you took action. I encourage everyone to go get those books. They're very well written. I would like to correct you and say that you can become famous without showing your face. That actually adds more mysticism to it, man.
That
So
was the idea, actually.
yeah, man, that's, hey, man, a lot of times, people, the way we work is like, it starts to really bother us, like, who is this guy, who is this? So we even get more attracted to it. But again, I think because you wrote it as a hobby, they are so very well written, because you didn't have a deadline, or you didn't think about some financial gain or whatever. I think that's why it's so very well written. Again, I remember very importantly how you kind of brought the similarities between what's going on there now and ancient Rome. And like, there's all of these, I think, moments, real moments in the book, man, that are, like very gripping and very to the core. So you can take us out of here. What would you like to leave us with? Maybe a message to the people that are going to watch this, man.
I want people to start thinking about how they can capitalize on peace, not war. I mean, like so much like throughout history, so much sadness and so much like the so much evil things have been committed by I mean, regardless of our our gender, nationality, or skin color, we're all people, and this is like people want this war is like people doing the worst. Well, like I said in my book, that the war sort of bring out the worst in us, right? And how about we start bringing out the best in us for a change? Like so, instead, like, and one sense I remember from my book is like instead of uh, keep giving war a chance, why not give a peace a try? So I want that's something that my audience and your audience to think about it.
Man, I couldn't say it better. And I just always advocate for this. And I would really love to remind people that we can point fingers and we can say, oh, it's the elites, it's the government, it's the politics, but we are the hands of those elites and the politics. It's not Trump and Putin running into the field and boxing it out. It's us going there and doing the pulling of the trigger or whatever it is. And I would really like to add on to something wonderful that you said is we should really start thinking about how we can claim the power back to us, as a community, as a town, as a city, as a country, man. I didn't get to ask you this last time, but it's a tradition of the show because it's called Prove to Me That You're Alive. What is the meaning to life for you personally?
To me, is to be free, free of being dependent from the from my government, the establishment in general. Like that's part of the reason why I'm on the path that I'm on. Like I'm COVID kind of helped me, but I just couldn't see myself living under the uh, servitude or under the yoke of another man or woman, really. So I just I gotta chase my free will, uh, regardless. I mean, and without any restraints. I just yeah, like being free is pretty much the only reason why I'm on the path that I'm on right now. Like I said, yeah.
Man, that's wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, Orwell McLee. Um, a Again, man, I gotta say this, a friend, a family member to the channel. And I wanna before we out of here, I wanna say thank you to your parents, say thank you to the people that helped raise you and took part in raising such a wonderful human being, man. And I feel really blessed that we connected. I really, really like I thank God for these sort of moments. I thank God for sort of people like you. I remember an old man told me a long time ago, he's like, don't collect money, collect good people. So I always feel blessed, and I want to thank you again. I can't thank you enough. Please come back anytime. We're always here for you, man. And this was Orwell McLee. Thank you, my brother, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Remember, go get the books. Links in the description, man. They're amazing books. Go get them, man. Before this guy is out of this world famous, man, and then all the copies are sold or something. Go get it.
That'd be my dream come true.
It's gonna happen, brother. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, Orwell.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Nas.
Stay in touch, man.
Yeah, later.
Later.
Prove to me that you are alive.